It's interesting when you think about the term wife being like almost a negative term. We certainly in the Western culture have this sense of somebody describing themselves as the wife of someone seems like it's a denigration. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe, I mean, it almost seems like a submissive term in some way, shape, or form, that because we identify ourselves as someone's wife, that we are somehow less or anything like that. I also think farm wife gets a really interesting, like, oh, they're just at home, they're being the housewife, they make the meals, maybe they do the books. Like, that isn't an important or relative term. I'm here to tell you that farming is a straight up business. And any part of that operation, whether it's, applying chemicals to the crops, or whether it's raising the animals or raising the kids or cooking meals for the guys, or bookwork, that's a really big deal. And so I don't know why being someone's wife has such a negative connotation. I feel like it's kind of a culture we're in right now, especially, women not wanting to be identified as someone's wife. I don't know. For me, I think it's an honor to be someone's wife. It's an honor to be a mom. I don't really know why we don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, in my take, like, it's one of those things where it's a mutual benefit, right? Like,
Yeah,
if you take somebody on as your husband, they have a responsibility to you the way you have a responsibility to them, and it's like an honor to be able to say it, because not everybody gets that, and even if people get it, they don't necessarily get the one that works out, or they don't know how to make the right
right.
kind of sacrifices. So to me, even to think about my wife describing herself as my wife, like, that really makes me feel empowered and wholesome and
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Well, and you choose that when you get married. You agree to get married to someone as an equal partner. Like, they're your husband just as much as I'm Jordan's wife or my husband's wife. And so for him to say, like, oh, my wife, now whatever follows that sentence, then, usually he's talking nicely about me. But it is a prideful thing. When you get married, you make that decision to be someone's partner. And I do not in any way, shape, or form see it as a negative thing to be a farmer's wife.
Yeah. And like you were saying, I think one of the things about your Instagram that's really interesting is your pictures are polished, right? Like, you know how to take a photograph so that you frame things so that people feel like, but at the same time, you're framing chaos. I look at what you have going on and I'm like, oh man, thank God I don't have to be sitting there doing books while children are going absolutely crazy around in the side.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a different, I think that your frame up of Instagram seems to be disconnected from the social status game that I see played by most other people.
I often wonder if I put too much of a happy spin on things, because life is really genuinely crazy around here. We just had our third child in December, and I call her a nanny. She was a babysitter. She did some of my laundry. She was amazing. I never took her for granted. She was the most amazing woman that helped me out when I would go to work 2 days a week before we had our third kid. She moved away in August. And so in August, I have a 3 and 5 year old that come to work with me as well. And that's not as big of a deal because they can play, or, they somewhat are self-sustaining individuals at this point. They maybe need help going to the bathroom. Okay. So that's no big deal. When you throw a newborn into the mix, it's really hard. I'm finding it to be hard. Work stresses me out right now. And so to show the reality of it, but then still saying, like, okay, look at how, like, I'm very blessed to be able to keep the kids there and raise them on the farm and show them hard work. That idea, I try to continually remind myself and bring myself back to that when I am in that, like, stage of chaos. But that is really a true reality for farm wives and for farmers, and for a lot of individuals, is raising their kids and still having all of these responsibilities that you have. And kids obviously come number one, but when you're running your own business, that also is very, very important. Like, bills don't stop coming. And it's not easy to say, like, I'm going to take maternity leave and someone's going to come do my job for me, or someone's going to find that person. Well, I have to find that person. Lucky for me, I have a mother-in-law who's amazing, who's helping me out, but it's not easy. And so to frame that, I want to frame it in a way that, like, people want to watch, because no one wants to see me in tears crying in the closet because I need like 5 minutes to myself. But in the same breath, I think it's really important to share with as many people as I can reach the reality of this like Midwestern United States life of farming.
Yeah, and I think that that's such a tenuous line to walk, because I watch other people that I think use their pain or their struggles or sometimes the things that they're not able to grapple with as a form of let me show off my victimness, and that victimness should give you, it's like a weird cycle that is not going to be positive. Like, no one's going to win in that scenario other than you will get attention for it. And I never see you do that. And I think that's why you've never been booted from that's why I follow you, I think.
Well, I appreciate that. I do think that there is like struggle and pain. Like our family, we've experienced our first pregnancy was a miscarriage. And so we did go down that route. I did recently, but it was more, instead of playing the victim, it was more of a like uplifting, like, I know so many people go through stuff like this. Like you are not alone. It's a very taboo topic to talk about, especially publicly, especially when it's really fresh and it's happening to you. And so I offered my pain from that in that regard as almost like you can get through it. It sucks right now. It's so hard. There's nothing more painful, I don't think, than something like that. But like you said, it's not, oh, look, I had this big struggle happen to me, poor me, poor me. It's let's stand back up and get back on our feet and keep moving forward, because that's what we have to do. We don't have a choice. We don't have a choice to sit and wallow when other people rely on you, when you need to keep pushing through, right? Don't you think?
Oh, 100%.
You gotta get through it.
I mean, and like some of that, it is good to talk about, because my wife and I actually had 2 miscarriages on our path to having our first child. And I was in my 30s. And no one had ever told me, hey, man, this is a possibility. This is something you could have happen. This is something that you're going to have to help your wife navigate. This is going to have to be something that you yourself are going to have to face. And so there is that fine line, because you don't want to be like, hey, everything's sad or not normal or not positive. Let's just push that out. And yet at the same time, pushing it in only makes people's lives more complicated. You're asking them to carry a burden they can't do anything to help alleviate for you. Yeah,
I'm sorry that you had that happen to you. We actually had 2 as well. And I actually think it's not even the word possibility. It's like, it's rather possible. Like the statistics on having a miscarriage are
like 1 in 10 or something like that. 1 in 10 pregnancies, as well as they know. Yeah.
Well, and like 1 in 4 women experience it. Well, that's a lot. Wow. When you think of how many women are in the United States having babies. And I think it's just one of those things that you just have to get through. But that's one reason, as my social media, the Instagram has evolved, my primary target audience is women 18 to 40 and people in their childbearing years, people that are living this like toddler life, people who are doing a lot of the same thing, whether they're farming or not. They're in a lot of the same stages of life as I am. And so it's evolved into the fact of like, hey, let's talk about those things. Like, let's talk about miscarriage. Let's talk about working with your kids. During all of this stuff that's been going on in the last year with staying at home and working and having to teach your kids school, like, God bless those parents, because my kids aren't in school yet. And I'm just trying to do what I need to do and keep them alive, let alone actually teach them something.
Thanks for checking out this podcast short. If you like this interview, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell so you always get notified about this podcast. And if you're really interested in conversations like this, you may want to consider joining the Articulate Ventures Network. To find out more, go to network.articulate.ventures.